All right, I've just got the thumbs up. We're good to go. So, good afternoon, everybody who's here, and a warm welcome to everybody who's joining us online. I know that some of you have been with us from the beginning this afternoon, but I'd just like to, extend my welcome to those who are joining us throughout the afternoon. This is the second panel I've chaired today. I'm sorry to any of you who are already fed up with me, but I'm back. This one, we're looking at partnership. We're looking at how we can develop partnerships and how we can develop the leaders who can create those partnerships. I'm Craig Turp, editor of Emerging Europe, and I'm joined by a stellar cast of leaders, all of them virtually. I'm going to address the screen, the big screen that's behind me here. I will go from right to left as I see them. Agnieszka Gajewska, who is the Global International Development Leader of PwC. Then we have Andreas Schaal, who is from the OECD, Vera Platonova, who's from Visa, and Haldun Köktürk, who's from Limak. Before I come to my guests, I'm just going to kind of make a general point, and then maybe, I'll hand over to one of them. But, certainly in my experience, in the first decade or so, since the fall of communism in what we now call emerging Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, there was a trend for global companies operating in the region, and even local companies to a certain extent, to bring in leaders and senior management figures from outside of, the region. The reasons, that they did that, there are various things that we might, talk about a little bit. But now, that's certainly not the case. There are, great leaders, born and bred in the region, and, some of them are here with us today. So, simply because you're first on the list here, Agnieszka, I'm going to come to you first. Maybe it would be good to hear about, your own experience a little bit, in terms of, the career path that, you've had, and, how things have been a bit different for you as it might have been, let's say, 30 years ago or 25 years ago.
Thank you, Craig. It's a very interesting question. I haven't expected this one. So let me quickly summarize some of my experience. Clearly, I'm one of the beneficiaries of all the transformation that happened over the last years in Central and Eastern Europe, emerging Europe, yes. I still remember very, very well the times of the curfew in Warsaw, the streets of Warsaw. So it was like, 1981, if I remember correctly. I remember these times. And, since then, Poland and countries in the region have made amazing progress as it comes to pretty much in all lives, so economy, society, and I've been on this journey through and through. Not always in Poland, not always in Central and Eastern Europe, but always working in the region and with the region. You are very right. I think we started our transformation using not only the capital and financial support and investments from so-called Western world, but also the talents and also the models of Western Europe and the US and so on. And with the time, it's very, very true that we started to put more and more focus on our local bred leadership and people who can succeed, take over, and also I think somehow unite the international insight with very having the boots on the ground. And I think right now, when I look at the most inspiring leaders in the whole region, I think these are exactly those who have experience and understanding of global trends, but at the same time have a very good understanding and are part of what is going on the ground, and have very good understanding how this global insight, knowledge and experience can be used in very specific perspective of their own countries and their own markets.
All right, well, thanks. That's a great start. Andreas, I want to ask you, I mean, I know that for the OECD, you know, one of the key things that the OECD does is to focus on education, obviously with the, you know, the PISA assessments and other things. In the previous discussion that we had, you know, I don't know what you saw, but, you know, the CEO of the Warsaw Stock Exchange said that the competitive advantage of, you know, Central and Eastern Europe was its talent pool. But, you know, I'd certainly be interested to hear from, you know, your perspective from the OECD, which is so focused on education, you know, how you see that, whether or not, you know, that's actually the case.
Thanks so much, Greg, for this question, and thanks to Emerging Europe for inviting us. Always a pleasure to support this important initiative. And you were referring to education, which is indeed one of the crucial pillars of our work. Others are international standards in the fields of taxation, anti-corruption stuff. We may talk in the second half of the session. And it's indeed important to have to focus on the huge improvements in education over the past 25 years in Central and Eastern Europe. I think what we have seen in the past 25 years, the growth of 130% in GDP per capita, also the growth in household income, which has almost doubled over the past 25 years. This is due to the factor of education, but also post-education and the people's, you know, the lifelong learning of the people. And this has also led to investment of major companies from my own home country, Germany, into Central and Eastern European countries, because you can find their highly qualified labor force. So this is certainly a key pillar of the transformation in the last 25 years. And let me just say, going forward, I believe this will become even more important as we speak about the digital transformation of not only of this region, of a global digital transformation, but here again, highly skilled people will have big advantages over others.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Vera. I'm going to come to you next. You know, as you know, somebody who's obviously, you know, from this region, you know, a bit like, you know, Agnieszka, I'd really like to hear just a little bit about your, you know, your own personal background a bit, and your personal experience of, you know, working your way up to become, you know, a global leader, as it were.
You know, it happened. First of all, hello everybody, and I am very pleased and happy that you invite me to this great event as a speaker. Thank you so much. To be frank, I always been in payments from like the beginning of my career, and before I always thought that I will never be a banker. But it happens so that I work in payment industry from 2006 in different payment schemes. But the good thing is that I see how the region, post-Soviet Union republics, geography plus Balkans, for which I am responsible right now from Kiev, is evolving from different standpoints, from financial inclusion standpoint, from the development and support of medium, small business, from diversity and inclusion standpoint. So for me as a Ukrainian, and I was born in Ukraine and I spent all my life in Ukraine and I want to stay here, it's very important that such global companies, global IT companies as Visa, are investing in the region, in emerging Europe, actually, region, and building the hub in Kiev, in Ukraine. So we have almost 150 people in Kiev with a lot of offices all around, as we called Southeast Europe and CIS region, with the population more than 200 million people overall. And we see how fast the transformation is happening and how we as a global IT and financial company can impact people's life each day by bringing cashless, by supporting small, medium businesses, starting like from Serbia up to Tajikistan, from capitals up to very small cities or even villages in very diverse parts, like in Turkmenistan or in Armenia. And it makes me very happy that I am a part of this story, and my work is really meaningful, and the work of the whole team and the industry.
All right, thanks. Haldun, I mean, Vera just spoke there about, how important it is that, global companies, invest in local talent. I mean, is that something that, you've made a priority, a Limak?
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity.
We've got a bit of interference, I think, on your feed. I don't know if that's our end or...
Can you hear me? Hello?
It's we can hear you, but it's very... There's
Just let me try here. Can barely hear me, right? It's better now? Can you hear me?
Can we speak to him or?
I can hear you, but cannot hear me.
We can just about hear you. It's just that there's a lot of background noise, and it does make it rather difficult.
Probably Turkish airline commercial for the airplanes, no?
Yeah, I know for there's not plane taking off in the background, is there?
Hello again.
Yep, I mean we can hear you. Just try,
So I brought the microphone. Hello? Can you hear me better now? Is it better?
That's perfect. That's
Okay.
perfect.
So fine, let's do it like this. Sorry for this delay.
Not a problem.
So thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting us for this session. Yes, and the global change in the business environment in emerging markets has been very fast, really. And in this scale, especially in the infrastructure and the transportation sector, the sector was diversified immediately. I remember 25 years ago, I was working as an engineer for some projects in-house, but right now we have presence in 16 countries as companies. So we need to be adapted. For local expertise a lot. For instance, for particularly talking about the emerging Europe market, after dissolvement of the Soviet bloc, like the socialist bloc, there was a big transportation. And from my point of view, this is my opinion, this dissolvement triggered mobility in three different things. What are they? One is the mobility of the money. The other is the mobility of the people. The third is the mobility of the data. At the end of the day, there was more conservative world in place, and the transparency was very limited. Because the let me say, two poles in the world were looking to each other a little bit cautiously, and then things changed rapidly. So, frankly speaking, it was very challenging to catch this growth and to train many people in, especially abroad. Like, since you have a company policy, you have several needs, and then it was sometimes challenging to find local expertise in in emerging markets. So what we did was we made some cooperations with different universities in the regions. So we had some social projects, which is a part of our business. And then we used to train our own employees from the young talents that we can find. And Eastern Europe is a very, very fruitful area for this. We cannot underestimate the quality of education of the socialist bloc. And for instance, in different countries like Romania, Ukraine, Poland, there are really universities, and if they have been budget-wise and government-wise supported, they have really good power of, let me say, lecturers and the scientific research background. What we did was to focus as much as we can in local work power and to train them according to our company policy.
All right, thanks. I'm going to come to you again, Agnieszka, and I want to ask you a little bit about what leaders from our region, might have that, leaders from outside the region might not. What's their competitive advantage? If the talent in this region is the competitive advantage of the region, what's the competitive advantage of that talent?
Well, you know what, I will maybe question Craig a little bit this division. I don't know if this division is valid anymore, to be very honest. I literally, when I look right now at the leaders in my firm, for example, we have leaders from outside the region and from the region. Does it really differentiate them that much? I think, for some of them, English is maybe their mother tongue, but other than this, I think more and more we have rather good leaders or maybe just average leaders, and they can come from everywhere in the world, to be very honest. So if okay for you, I would maybe divert from this.
Please do.
And go, to the qualities of the leaders that we need today. You yourself said something that, the title of this panel is about new inspirational leaders. And I think this is precisely what we need right now. This is precisely the people whom we need right now. I listened today to the State of the Union of Ursula von der Leyen, and where you are sitting, I think it's a very topical thing to bring on. And she said something like this, that, we as Europe needs to be like our young people, so grounded in values and very bold in their actions. And I think it is a beautiful summary of what we actually need right now, because the world is quite a complicated place right now. The first part of your title of this panel is inspiring unity, which is again a beautiful statement. But when you look at the world around, including also Europe, it's a fracturing world. So we have like fractures among the countries, among societies, between the teams, between the families, age groups, you name them. So I think it's to keep this unity and to make it really inspiring. We need leaders who have something to offer, and this something to offer needs to be this glue to almost like reshuffle the reality as we have right now, and build back, not only back, but also build better. And so many leaders of today's world are talking, but actually we have like one in a generation chance to not only to build back, but to build better. So I genuinely think that, I really don't mind if our leaders come from this or that country, if they are very young or slightly older, and if they are a male or female. I really care about their attitude to the changes, and probably given where we are right now and how dynamic all the changes are, we're talking clearly about flexibility and adaptability. So this is something that is on, I would say, on the agendas of everyone. The markets are moving forward very quickly, and we need to be bold in our actions, and we need to take these actions quite quickly or very quickly. And for this to happen, we need to have imagination to see a couple of steps ahead. But also I liked what Ursula von der Leyen said today, that we need to be grounded in our values. So really to know, where are these areas where of core importance and core values to us, for us to be flexible on everything else, but really to stick to our values. It's difficult. I would say that the more complicated the word is, the more stable, curious but stable, and very much grounded in our values we as leaders need to be. If we continue our conversation, I would say that that's probably the area I very much focus on, looking at the challenges that are standing ahead of us.
All right. Well, Andreas, I'll come to you again now. I mean, obviously the biggest challenge, the reason that you're all joining us, via video link as opposed to being here is obviously because of restrictions and everything that's tied to COVID. I mean, do you believe that this will be actually used in the way that Agnieszka spoke about what Ursula von der Leyen said, that this is an opportunity to actually build better? But do you think that the leaders are in place to actually do this?
Yes, thanks a lot, Greg. And let me take it from where Agnieszka left it. I mean, the world is a complicated, a challenging place these days. And this crisis, if anything, has shown us that the virus does not stop at the border, climate change does not stop at the border, tax evaders do not stop at the border. And from our side, and you will not be surprised, that the answer is threefold. And the first is multilateralism, the second is multilateralism, and the third is multilateralism. So we believe that we need leadership for multilateralism because this is needed in order to have international agreements. For example, international agreements to be able to travel. For example, I was able to last week to travel with my European COVID pass to Egypt because it was recognized in Egypt. So, and this is a basis where leaders are working together. We are working together on finding a solution for the challenges around digital taxation, so that companies pay taxes somewhere and do not calculate their profits and revenues and losses so that they do not pay taxes anywhere. So there's a lot of things on the move in the Building Back Better. Of course, one of the major challenges will be to come to an international, really meaningful way forward on climate on the basis of the Paris Agreement. But we believe in multilateralism, and this is a complicated thing. It requires leadership. It requires sometimes time and also frictions. But there is no, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, it's Tina. There is no alternative. Thank you.
All right. I mean, Vera, how do we encourage more, cross-border relationships? I mean, it was mentioned earlier, in one of the previous panels that, in this region, sometimes we're a bit too much, focused on borders. There's not enough of this, cross-border, intra-regional collaboration. How do we go about, changing that?
I think the COVID year, or even more than a year, showed us that there are no borders, right? And everybody agreed with this. I can tell from the payments perspective, this year gave to payments, and this is on the positive side, much, much more than we tried to achieve over the last years in terms of the education, because people were locked at homes and they had to learn how to survive and be able to buy things not only domestically but also out of the board. And digitalization, and as we call this, acceleration, when technology are growing fast and they're entering each home, it was boosting and it continues to boost. So even my mom learned how to use internet banking and buy things at Amazon. and local merchants. We see how fast delivery industry is growing, cross-border and local as well. So the world has changed and became even much more digitalized and global than it was before, which is probably good. And I think it's also the year brought positive from people leadership perspective and how companies are operating. Nobody ever believed that people could work effectively from home. And now everybody are sure, at least most of people, of leaders, that if we have a good team, it works from home, or from anywhere we are, very effectively from any country. And you see, we gathered today at video format. I don't know if we could achieve this flexibility 2 years ago. So the world is united more than ever. And that's good news. The only challenge is COVID, which we need to fight and move to this new level when face-to-face is open and digital becomes the new normal.
Well, I mean, you say digital becoming the new normal. I mean, it also seems as though you just suggested that, we talk sometimes about digital natives, but, given all of this, globalization that's been, brought upon us, as you mentioned, some of it by COVID. I mean, are we going to be creating a generation of, regional natives, people who simply don't think about borders? They don't think of themselves as being, from Poland or emerging Europe even, or Central Eastern Europe. They're just, as I say, regional natives, global natives,
Yeah, so I think our kids, they don't care in which countries they are already. And for us, it's less important now. I can tell you that for the last year, I see my boss who is in Dubai much more often than 5 years before, like all the 5 years, because we see each other in video format each week. And before it was like not a habit. So the world will never be the same. And we are all united and feel that we are together now, for example, at this conference.
All right. I mean, Haldun, staying with, regional partnership, regional collaboration. I mean, obviously, your company operates in, many, many different places. Some of them are incredibly diverse. I mean, how do you manage to bring it all together? Now you're on mute.
Problematic in this plan. Okay, now you hear me. Okay, thank you, Craig. And I want to take the speech from where Vera left because mobility, like right now, the payment methodologies, online shopping, everything is a crucial part of our world. And so you can do everything from home, and even the banks are considering not to 100% come back to the branch or to the offices to start to work. For instance, my sister is a banker and she's working from home for days and months. But, in our sectors, mostly infrastructure, airport business, there shall be physical presence. At the end of the day, if you operate an airport, it's not, let me say, e-business or e-commerce. At the end of the day, there has to be an aircraft and there has to be passengers which needs to travel somehow. From managing the business point of view, it was not very challenging, as Vera mentioned, and also Andrea and Agnieszka has mentioned. It was not very challenging, and the online platforms were quite sufficient and useful to have the meetings, and it helped a lot to hold the borders. Right now, especially because of business-wise, these sort of teams, Google applications or whatever, made our life easy for shopping purposes, Amazon, eBay or whatever. And also social media is making people to at least to see different places through different people's profiles or something. But in the end of the day, the physical presence somewhere is a need for people. And frankly speaking, although there is online meetings and all, I don't think that it's 100% efficient. Yes, you do have meetings online, but at the end of the day, it's easier to visit one of your colleagues' room and talk to him in person, just 30 seconds, and wrap things. But for this online platforms, first you need to set the time, you need to make it convenient for all the parties and plan everything. For the countries that we operate, we are not only limited, in Europe, and we have business in different countries in Africa, in India, in Afghanistan, even in Russia and other countries. We didn't feel so much difficulty, but what we had to do at that time is to make a really good plan to keep the human resource that we need in that country and arrange the platform for them to work safely in that country and take the measures against COVID, because all the countries had different COVID restrictions, especially in aviation. It was changing in not even daily basis, hourly basis, because they were limiting the flights. Some of the countries were putting the other country to the red list and all, and it was very, very challenging. But for the payment methods, for auditing purposes, like since there are big four companies here, for the others everything could have been done online. But we maybe this is the main strength of a human being. A human being can adopt everything very quickly. So we didn't feel the financial impact of COVID yet, at least 100%. This is my let me say opinion, but the wave will come in the forthcoming years, because the demand and supply was not at the same level. Especially there may be some shortage in the supply in close future. I think the main question shall be, we have to be ready for this in the close future. This is what I can say.
All right, well, thank you, Haldun. We've got time for, I think, just one more final question. And, we are looking at, how we can, inspire a new generation of leaders. So, I'd like to hear from each of you, what your advice, basically, to somebody who's just starting out. What kind of values should they have? What kind of things should they be looking to do in order to, get into a position where they're able to inspire people? Agnieszka, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Craig. And I didn't say it before, so I will start by saying, well done for Emerging Europe for bringing the topic of leadership to such a conversation and inviting me. I very much appreciate it. I think, the strong leadership is right now like absolutely the key factor for us to do what we want to do. I think I said quite a lot about being grounded in values, being flexible, bold in action. So I tried to cover your question before. If okay, I will come back to of statements that we've made during this panel about the world never going to be the same again, with which I absolutely agree. But wanted to give my views and maybe a little bit different perspective about us really being united. Because yes, it is true, we are having this panel today with none of us being physically in Brussels. But I would say we shouldn't mix up being linked with being united. Andreas was talking about multilateralism. Vera was talking about us working together above borders. This is one side of the story. Another side of the story is that we have like nationalistic movements in most of the countries in our region and globally. At quite unprecedented level for the last couple of years. It started before COVID and it's continuing. The COVID times showed us the supply nationalism started from medical supplies through vaccinations and so on and so forth. So I fully agree with Andreas, what you said about the big problems of today's world. By far beyond any single country, even the strongest one. So yes, multilateralism and working together with partnerships that Emerging Europe put as a topic of our discussion is absolutely essential here. But I think, when we're talking to the businesses, when we're talking to the governments, you can see that there's, I would say, such a great enthusiasm around globalization that was very obvious and visible a couple of years ago. Right now has a very different face. So yes, we are talking, and businesses are talking about nearshoring. Governments are talking about nearshoring, trade tariffs, and all of this started still before the pandemics, and then continues. So I would say we still live in the global world, but I wouldn't undermine this need of understanding the local circumstances and the local interest. And I think the successful leaders of tomorrow will be able to combine the both, and don't underestimate what is going on right now. And as I said, we need to combine local with global. We need to combine private with public, and those who will be able probably to combine this interest, sometimes very conflicting one, and find the right solutions for these interests, I think are going to be successful and impactful leader in the future.
All right, thanks. Andreas?
Thanks so much, Greg. And let me say it's such a pleasure to speak after Agnieszka, because she always puts the ball on the penalty, and I just need to kick it through the goal. So let me give you four dimensions of the future global leader. First of all, I think a future leader needs to have a global mindset. Second, rooted in values, and as you said, Agnieszka, in local circumstances. Very important to have roots and to know where you come from. I think this is also important for the values you develop in a society, because values are not something which is normally developed on a global level. Third dimension, I think future leaders need to have emotional intelligence, even more than substantive knowledge. You need to know how to lead people, how to lead a team. This is becoming the crucial competence also in the digital age, even more so than before, when you need to work more and more in teams. And the fourth dimension is the new leader needs to be inspiring in creativity, but also in curiosity. So lead by example and really define the new frontiers. That would be my 4 dimensions. Thanks so much.
I think that's perfect. Vera, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think this year and future year, they are both very difficult for people who started building their careers or for students. I can tell you based on visa example, we have many employees who came during this year and they work online and they haven't seen for more than a year their peers. So Agnieszka,
I met 3 of my colleagues for the first time yesterday, actually. Yeah. So,
Exactly. So we are all linked, but we are not connected, and they cannot feel the culture, atmosphere. It's very difficult to do through the screen. And also students, like my daughter graduated first year of the university sitting at home and studying in Canada, which is also not the best experience for the student. Very difficult time for the youth. And the most important is to be able to adapt to the changes, and definitely emotional intelligence is one of the critical ones. I would like to say also, like, turning to women, because visa especially, like paying attention to women, we have big umbrella, She's Next, supporting women in big corporations, but also entrepreneurs, as they are less confident often than men to start the business, to say what they are expecting for. Be confident, especially in these difficult days. Be strong, and remember that if you don't ask, the answer is no. Just go ahead and do what you believe is right. Thank you.
All right, well, the last word goes to you, Haldun. And you're going to need to unmute.
So all 3 panelists said most of the words. What I want to add is, of course, creating a leadership and a career is not only one-dimensional thing from my point of view, because you need a team and a group of people which you need to grow together. That's why a leader, first of all, shall understand the integrity, diversity, respect to people's, pros and cons and all. Since we're talking that there are no borders anymore, there's a big diversity in real sector that you can able to create a team from the people from different countries. So it needs understanding of cultures at the meantime. If any person, a young candidate, look from this point of view, it's not only being successful in business. A good leader shall understand diversity, local cultures, and first of all, he or she has to learn to respect to the people's attitude, culture, or of course, gender. This is also a key point. It's sometimes becoming challenging in different geographies. That's why it was a very fruitful conversation between the panelists, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. This is what I wanted to add as a part of the leadership session.
All right. Well, I think we can all agree that good leaders are good leaders wherever they come from. And I'm, glad that I was joined today by 4 very, very good leaders. So thank you very much.